You were never quiet because you had nothing to say. You were quiet because you learned early that speaking came with consequences. Maybe you were interrupted. Maybe your feelings were brushed off as too much. Maybe no one ever told you to stay silent. They just didn't really listen. And at some point, without even realizing it, you learned one rule: staying quiet is safer. So you lowered your voice and your needs and your presence. You became the easy kid, low maintenance, mature beyond your years, the one who didn't cause problems, and people praised you for it. But here's the dark truth no one talks about. What protected you as a child slowly began to erase you as an adult. Now people misread your quietness. They assume you're distant, uninterested, weak, or emotionally cold. What they don't see is that your nervous system is always on. The moment you walk into a room, you read the energy. You notice tone before words. You scan faces before you speak. You're not quiet, you're hyper-aware. And this isn't a personality trait, it's a survival response. When a child's emotions are consistently ignored, when their inner world isn't met with curiosity or care, their nervous system adapts. The child learns, I won't be a burden. I'll handle things myself. I'll keep everything stable. This is emotional neglect. Not loud, not obvious, but deeply shaping. Without emotional safety, the brain shifts into constant alert. The amygdala stays activated. The body forgets how to fully relax. Silence becomes regulation. Over time, connection becomes complicated. You want closeness, but it feels risky. You want to be seen, but visibility feels unsafe. So you stay reserved. You expect very little. You give understanding before asking for any in return. Eventually, quiet stops being something you do and becomes something you are. The real cost isn't that you talk less. The real cost is that you slowly disconnect from yourself. You feel emotions but struggle to name them. You feel exhausted but guilty when you rest. You crave connection but don't know how to ask for it. This creates an invisible grief. Grief for the version of you that never got to take up space. Grief for the words you swallowed. Grief for needs that were never welcomed. Carl Jung once said, "What is not made conscious will be lived out as fate." Quiet people often live lives shaped by unspoken compromise, authenticity traded for peace, truth traded for harmony, and inside a split forms, who you are versus who you show. Living in that split is exhausting. That quiet child grows up, and as an adult, they often struggle to set boundaries, feel uncomfortable asking for help, attract emotionally unavailable people, work hard but feel unseen, avoid conflict even when it costs closeness, second-guess their voice before using it. These aren't flaws, they're coping strategies. They once kept you safe, but survival and living aren't the same thing. Healing doesn't mean becoming loud. It means becoming honest, first with yourself. Inner child work is about returning to the moment. Silence became protection and letting that part of you know you don't have to disappear anymore. Shadow work means reclaiming the parts of you that were labeled too much. Your anger, your needs, your desires, your voice. Nervous system healing means teaching your body that expression is safe now. Speaking slowly, saying small truths, letting your voice exist without apology. And maybe most important of all, choosing softness over survival. Seneca wrote, "We suffer more often in imagination than in reality." Quiet people often live in anticipation, not because danger is present now, but because it once was. And here is the truth you need to hear. Your voice was never the problem. The environment was. You weren't weak, you were perceptive, you were adaptive, you were surviving. But survival is not the end goal. The goal is not to be fixed. The goal is to become whole. You are allowed to take up space. You are allowed to be seen. You are allowed to speak. Your silence was intelligent, but your voice is sacred. And remember, you are not that child anymore. You can speak now. And speaking doesn't have to be dramatic. It doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't have to come out strong the first time. For someone who learned to survive by staying quiet, expression feels like risk, even when the danger is gone. So healing happens in small, almost invisible ways. It looks like pausing before you say yes and checking what you actually feel. It looks like letting discomfort exist instead of immediately smoothing it over. It looks like saying, "I don't like that," without explaining explaining yourself for 5 minutes afterward. At first, your body may react. Your chest tightens. Your heart speeds up. Your mind tells you you're doing something wrong. You're not. Your nervous system is just catching up to the present. Because for a long time, safety meant disappearing. Now safety has to mean presence. This is why quiet people often mistake anxiety for intuition. They've been listening to threat signals for so long that calm feels unfamiliar. But calm is not silence. Calm is safety with expression. Real healing begins when you stop asking, how do I stop being this way? And start asking, what did this part of me protect me from? Your quiet protected you from chaos, from emotional unpredictability, from being too much for people who couldn't hold you. Honor that, but also recognize this truth. What protected you then does not have to lead you now. You are allowed to unlearn silence without betraying your past. You are allowed to speak without becoming aggressive. You are allowed to take up space without shrinking others. Your voice doesn't need to be loud. It just needs to be true. And when you begin to speak from truth, something changes. The right people lean in. The wrong people fall away. That's not loss. That's alignment. Quiet people often fear that if they show their real thoughts, they'll be rejected. But what actually hurts more is being accepted for a version of yourself that isn't real. You don't need to perform calm anymore. You don't need to earn belonging through restraint. Belonging begins when you stop abandoning yourself. There will be moments you relapse into silence. That doesn't mean you failed. It means an old survival pattern was activated. Meet it with compassion, not shame. Say to yourself, I see why I went quiet, and I'm safe enough now to choose differently. That choice, again and again, is how you rebuild trust with yourself. And one day you'll notice something subtle but powerful. You'll still be thoughtful, still observant, still deep, but you won't be invisible anymore. You'll speak without your heart racing. You'll express needs without guilt. You'll exist in rooms without shrinking, not because you forced confidence, but because your body learned it no longer had to hide. That is what wholeness looks like. Not fixing yourself, not becoming someone else, but integrating the quiet child with the grounded adult you are now. So if this resonated, if it put words to something you've carried quietly for years, share it with someone who needs permission to exist out loud. And remember this above all, your silence was wisdom, your awareness was strength, but your voice is your life, and you are allowed to live it.